Justification Lesson 8, the progression of justification. This lecture will be the last in this progression, and then we'll go on to the fulfillment of justification. So this is the culmination of the progression. Let us go to the Day of Atonement and follow through what actually happens and see what the result of this sin offering is on the Day of Atonement. Leviticus 16 puts this in place, and Leviticus 23, 26 to 32 confirms it. And I trust that you've read these last lecture and you've got them clearly in your mind now as we come to them. Right, the high priest comes to the tabernacle and stands as the representative of the people. It's the high priest who does this in this particular day. A bullock and a goat are taken as sin offerings, the bullock for the high priest and his office. So immediately we know that this is still only a type or an allegory and not the final answer. It's more of the progression of the principle. We know this because the high priest has to offer for himself, and so obviously this is looking ahead to when we have a high priest who doesn't have to offer for himself. And then there's the goat taken for the people. Another goat is taken for the scapegoat, and 2 rams are taken as burnt offerings. And then we see that the high priest kills the sin offering and sheds its blood, and it is poured out at the base of the brazen altar. The high priest catches a bowl of the blood and takes it into the holy place along with a censer of burning coals from off the brazen altar. He then takes a handful of incense from the altar of incense and goes through the veil into the Holy of Holies. So he sacrificed the sin offering, he's poured the blood out at the base of the altar, but he keeps a bowl of blood and he has that in his left hand. He has on his arm a golden censer, and he fills that with burning coals from off the brazen altar. Then he goes in and he gets off the altar of incense in his right hand a handful of incense, and then he wrestles with the veil and he goes through the veil into the Holy of Holies. And it is here in the Holy of Holies that our courtroom of justification is convened. Now remember last lesson, the law became part of the progression of this doctrine. So we now have, as we saw in last lesson, God as the judge, us as sinners, the law accusing us to God, us being guilty and not being able to answer the law, God pronouncing his judgment on us, condemnation and judgment for us. Right, so this is the situation now. The high priest, as representative of the congregation, goes in and he's the accused. He stands before God. The judge is God himself seated above upon the mercy seat. His very presence, power and glory highlighting the sinfulness of the accused. When the high priest goes in, just being in God's very presence makes it clear to him just exactly how guilty he is. In the ark we have the law, the prosecutor, accusing mankind to God. Remember, God had made 2 moves, hadn't he? He'd moved the law into the Ark of the Covenant, and he'd moved his very presence into the Holy of Holies above upon the mercy seat between the cherubim. So, why is the high priest there? Because he and the congregation he represents are guilty and they know it. Now, they go into the courtroom knowing that they are guilty. They also know that God, the righteous judge, knows they are guilty. Then why appear in this courtroom at all? And we need to think about this. Because The first reason is because the consequences of not appearing are worse than the consequences of appearing. Things can't get worse, they could only possibly get better, but God has commanded them to appear. Whether they appear or not is irrelevant as regarding the penalty. God's righteous demands will be satisfied. God is the judge, and God will have satisfaction regarding sin. And then there's another reason, because there's no possibility of being found innocent if they don't appear. Right? If they do appear, knowing they are guilty, they expect to be found guilty. But if they don't appear, there's no possibility of being found innocent. The case may appear hopeless right from the start, but to not appear would preclude any possibility of there ever being any hope. And then there's another reason, because they knew the judge and trusted him. They believed that God, as the righteous judge, would do what was right, that justice would be done and would be seen to be done. They knew that God is a just God and can be no other than just, and so God will do what is right, and justice will be done, and justice will be seen to be done. And so that's another reason to appear. And then there's another reason too. They appeared because they had a plea which they were going to rely on. They were going to plead for mercy. Right, so they appear in the courtroom. So what happens when the high priest goes into the Holy of Holies? Well, it seems so simple. First, he wrestles his way through the veil. On his left arm is the censer of burning coals. In his left hand is the bowl of blood for the sin offering. In his right hand is the incense from off the altar of incense. So he wrestles with the veil and he emerges into the Holy of Holies, into the courtroom. Now the high priest immediately puts the handful of incense into the censer of burning coals, and this produces a fragrant aroma and a thick smoke which quickly permeates the whole room. It is a sweet savour. The high priest swings the censer to and fro, and this causes the smoke and the savour, the sweet smell, into every nook and cranny, so that it permeates even to the place of God's very presence above upon the mercy seat. Within the Holy of Holies, the only thing not affected by the incense is the law. It is inside the ark, and the ark is sealed by the mercy seat. So everything in the Holy of Holies except the law is affected by the incense as it permeates throughout the Holy of Holies. The high priest then goes and stands before the ark. So as the accused, he faces the bar. The high priest then dips a finger of his right hand into the blood in the bowl on his left hand and sprinkles that blood before the ark and on the mercy seat. He does this 7 times. The high priest then goes back out through the veil, through the holy place, into the court where the people await him, and he pronounces them justified. Notice that the high priest, through all this time in the Holy of Holies in the courtroom, does not say a word. So how can the guilty, condemned sinner go into the courtroom guilty and come out innocent and God be a just God? Why doesn't God strike the high priest dead? How can God's righteous demands have been satisfied by what has been done? Isn't this a legal case? Mustn't the law be applied? Isn't the law adamant that the wages of sin is death? Has God's mercy overridden his justice? How can God, who is judged by his very nature, not punish sin? Now, all these questions require a satisfactory answer, and so we need to look at it and find if there is a satisfactory answer. So let us convene the court and hear the case. The accused is ready to enter. The judge inquires if the prosecutor is ready, and the law, who is the prosecutor, replies, "Yes, Your Honour, I am always ready." This is really an open and shut case, Your Honour. You and I both know that the accused is guilty and must be punished. You yourself has decreed that the punishment, if found guilty, is death. The precedent was set in your dealing with the world in the time of Noah. As the prosecutor, I wish to raise a technical point of law. Yes, the judge questions. The law proceeds. You yourselves have stated that, and I quote, "The life of the flesh is in the blood." So I must argue that the death penalty in this case be by the shedding of the blood. This is the only means by which it will be clear that justice has been done and been seen to be done. It is agreed that that is a technical point of law the judge concedes. So the accused enters the court. Before he even faces the bar, he makes his plea for mercy. The incense speaks. I am the prayers and supplications of your people, and on their behalf I implore you by my sweet fragrance as I permeate your very presence to show mercy. The judge, much affected, replied, "Justice must be done, but I will indeed temper justice with mercy at your request, for I cannot deny you." "What?" cries the law. "I know nothing of mercy. This case is about justice, Your Honour. Mercy cannot disannul justice, as you yourself know. What is this talk of mercy?" But the judge replies, "Justice must be done, and justice will be done. Nevertheless, I will temper my justice with mercy, if I can legally do so. The accused will face the bar. How do you plead?" The accused answers, "I have no plea, Your Honour, except this blood by which I now approach the bar and your presence, and which I place on the mercy seat." So the judge calls on the prosecution to proceed. The law says, "Your Honour, I accuse this wretched sinner of," and he goes on to make many hundreds of specific allegations, giving times, dates, places, proofs of guilt, etc. After an incredibly long list and irrefutable evidence, he sums up his case and requests that the death penalty be immediately applied in the manner technically required. The judge says, "Has the accused anything to say by way of justification?" The accused can only hang his head in shame. So the judge says, "What does the counsel for the defence have to say?" "What?" the law objects. "There is no doubt about their guilt, Your Honour, and anyway they are poor and wretched and cannot defend themselves. How can they afford a defence counsel?" And the judge replied, "For justice to be done, they must have a defence counsel to represent them. Because they have none of their own, I have appointed one for them. Their case is extreme and the cost is tremendous, so I myself, to ensure justice, have paid for it myself." Does the prosecution object to this? After due consideration, the law replies, "No, I have no grounds on which to object, Your Honour, except to say that they do not deserve it. Still, it is necessary to ensure that justice is done, and that is my role." So the judge says, "Let the counsel for the defence speak on behalf of the accused." And the mercy seat replies, "Your Honour, I am here to answer the law in every matter put forward. All the accusations can be classified under one heading, sin. So it is this matter of sin that must be dealt with. Please bear with me as I detail what is required to deal with sin, and correct me if I am wrong. First of all, it is clear that to be guilty in one point of the law makes a person guilty. So to be not guilty, one has to be without offence in every point of the law. Hear, hear from the law." The judge nods in assent. That is so. To be innocent, one must have no sin. But you have heard the prosecution, and his claim is not of just one violation, but many. Please allow me to develop the case, Your Honour, from the mercy seat. To be innocent, one must have this matter of sin dealt with. The penalty for sin is death, in this case by the shedding of blood, and the prosecution has called for the death penalty. I plead, Your Honour, that the penalty has been paid, and to be just, you cannot ask for it to be paid twice. What, interjects the law? What evidence do you have for this preposterous claim? And the mercy seat says, Your Honour, I would like to call the blood as my witness. The blood speaks. Your Honour, I am witness to the fact that the penalty has been paid. Death for sin has happened, so the wages have been paid. The slate is clean, and you must declare the accused not guilty. I support the blood from the mercy seat. I object, Your Honour, from the law. On what grounds? From the judge. It is clear, Your Honour, that this blood is not the blood of the accused who stands before us today alive. If it was his blood, he would be dead. On what basis is this claim for innocence made? The mercy seat answers the law. If the penalty for sin has been paid, then satisfaction has been given. The penalty has been paid. The blood is my witness. Is this so, Your Honour, from the law? The judge says, this is indeed an interesting legal argument. It is the argument of substitution. It is indeed true that justice demands that the price of sin be paid. The price of sin is death. However, there are some questions of law to be dealt with here, which I must cross-examine the witness on. Both the prosecution, the law, and I, the judge, must be completely satisfied on these matters, and then the case can continue. Firstly, what qualifies this substitute to take the place of the accused? And the blood replies, innocence, Your Honour. The substitute is without spot or blemish. The prosecutor and the judge confer, and the judge says, you do indeed have a case. It is true that if an innocent party pays the penalty for the guilty party, then I can judge the innocent as guilty and the guilty as innocent. But what proof do I have that the substitute actually has died in the place of the accused? And the blood replies, I am that proof, Your Honour. So the judge turns to the prosecution and asks, have you anything more to summarise your case? And the law replies, Your Honour, the accused deserves to die. I have overwhelmingly shown his guilt. He comes craving mercy, Your Honour, but I know nothing of mercy. I admit that the mercy seat has put a very interesting case that indeed has answered every accusation I have put. Indeed, Your Honour, if I could get out of this ark, I would be free to accuse mankind without the mercy seat constantly impeding me, and I could really condemn them then. But since you have confined me to the ark, and the mercy seat won't let me out, I will leave the judgment to you. So the judge says to the mercy seat, how do you sum up your case? And the mercy seat simply replies, I plead the blood, Your Honour. And the accused echoes in wonder and hope, I plead the blood, Your Honour. There is no other answer for me. The law has driven me to the mercy seat, and if the blood cannot save me, I am lost. So the judge must look at the law and make his decision, and this is how he summarises the case. This day is the day of judgment. It is on this day that my righteous demands must be satisfied. The people have done well to afflict their souls, but my judgment is that this is a day of atonement. The law has accused and spoken of sin, but I find each time the law makes an accusation and I look to the law, I see only the mercy seat, and it pleads the blood. So I examine the blood and find it efficacious in dealing with sin and answering the law. The power of the blood is the direct result of the innocence of the substitute who gave it. Because of this I cannot deny the blood. My righteous demands are satisfied because an innocent substitute has redeemed the accused, life for life, and paid the wages of sin. The proof that the price has been paid is that innocent blood. Now when the law accuses and I look to the blood, I see no sin. It is covered by the blood, so there is atonement. No matter how hard I